YouTube? It's your girl Baby Duck, and we are back at it again with another video. If you guys haven't already done so, please make sure you guys are liking the video, commenting, and please make sure you subscribe. And lastly, if you haven't already done so, please make sure you guys are hitting the alert button so you guys get a notification every single time I post. This story, it's a lot, but I feel like I'm in a space to talk about it because it happened so long ago. So yeah, let's just get right into this video. So this would have happened in 2019. I was 19, 20 years old at the time. I will call my ex Jimmy. That will be his name. So when you hear me say Jimmy, that is referring to my ex-boyfriend. So back in 2019, how I met him was he was friends with one of my friends. We'll just call my friend Richard. And we had all met in a dining hall. I was sitting there eating with my friend Richard. He introduced his friend. He said, "This is my friend Jimmy. We have a class together." And I'm just like, "Hi, Jimmy," and I continue to eat. So, after, I leave and I have my conversation with Richard and Jimmy. Jimmy shares with Richard that he thinks I'm attractive. So then one thing led to another, and then boom, we're dating. We're talking. All that stuff is not really important to the story. One thing I will say in regards to my relationship with Jimmy is that I loved his provider energy. Like I said, in 2019, I was around 19, 20, and he did have his own apartment. And I thought that was like so cool because at the university that I went to, you could not be a upperclassman and not have an apartment because the school required you to have an apartment, if that makes sense. So if you were a junior or a senior, you were no longer allowed to live in the dorms unless you were a resident advisor. And at the time I was a sophomore. So every guy that I had dealt with at that time had been in a dorm. A lot of them hadn't been in an apartment. So he had an apartment, he could cook. I mean, he was just amazing, right? So in me dating him, obviously I found out that he played soccer, and I didn't realize when we first started dating that he was as good as he is. I just thought, okay, you're just a college athlete. You play a sport like how other athletes do. But when I would walk around campus, I would actually see that there were pictures of him on the elevators, and just basically the school had been marketing him. Like when you thought of soccer at this time that I was in college, you thought of him because he was that good. So we get to Christmas break and he basically expresses to me like, I'm wanting to get drafted and I want you to watch the draft with me. Now, anybody that knows me knows I'm not really a sports person. I generally don't know anything about sports. I just learned about football last year. So I don't know about football. I don't know about basketball. So I really don't know nothing about soccer. So his name gets called. We're watching the TV and he gets drafted to play in San Antonio, Texas. I was really excited for him. I mean, at 19, can you imagine you're dating somebody that is a professional athlete? When you're looking at the statistics, you typically don't see that the guys in college or even women really get drafted to play professionally. So this was a big deal to be dating somebody like this. Now, he was older than me. Like I said, I was 19, 20 at the time. He was a senior. So he gets on a plane and he flies out to San Antonio. At this point where this story takes place, I had already been to San Antonio one time. So this story takes place in the summer. So I get there. It's around July. I'm super duper excited. Ooh, I'm sorry. Backtrack. Before I get there, me and him, we used to argue a lot, right? We had an argument prior to me taking the flight out there. This is important to the story because I told him that around the time that I was going to be able to get off work and be able to see him was the time I was going to be on my monthly cycle. He got upset. He was like, "I don't understand, what you want me to do about that because we haven't seen each other. Like, obviously we want to do the do." And he was like, "If you're going to be on your period, you might as well just not come." And I remember everybody around me telling me like, that's a red flag because he should just be excited to see you because you guys have not seen each other. But young and dumb, so I still go. So I take the flight, I go to San Antonio. We're having a really great time. We never really had an itinerary. Like if I was to plan a trip now, if I were to have a long distance relationship, which would not be my preference at all, But if I was to have a long distance relationship, I would definitely want to have an itinerary of things to do. He didn't have a car. It didn't make sense for him to have a car because he traveled a lot. So he did have a roommate, we'll call him Liam, and Liam had a car. So Liam was basically gonna be our Uber driver, right? So we get there, and the only thing that we really had an itinerary for was to have me finally watch his games professionally. I had seen his games in college, but I had never seen him play professionally. Like, I would watch it on the TV, but I never like seen it in person. So I suffer from anxiety really bad, and I think at that age I really didn't know that it was anxiety. So when he was telling me that I was going to be watching him play, I didn't know what that entailed. You know, I was like, damn, am I gonna be in the bleachers by myself? Is there gonna be other soccer girlfriend wives there? You know, stuff like that. So I get to the stadium, which is right across the street from his house, and I'm sitting there. I'm a little awkward, or I'm feeling a little awkward, because it's not like I have anybody to sit with and talk to. And again, I don't know anything about sports, so I don't even know what I'm looking at. I just know I'm there to support my man, and that was all I knew. I'm just there to support my man. So I'm sitting in the stands, feeling a little awkward, but I'm watching him. The game is over, and I go to hug him. He's so sweaty, it's nasty. But he just got done playing a whole professional game, honey. So I'm like, my man is working, okay? So I give him a hug, and I didn't know where to go from there. I didn't know where they met at, because mind you, I'm new to San Antonio. I'm new to this whole sports thing. I'm new to seeing his game. I had no idea where to go. So I hug him, and I'm like, where do I go now? He goes, oh, you're just gonna go to the gas station. Mind you, he had told me that that area where he lived, I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was like the hood or anything like that. I really just think that they had a few instances to where they've had some things happen. But he did share with me prior to me coming down that somebody had recently robbed that area where he lived, and he wanted me to stand there by myself. Remember, I told you guys, there's no soccer wives, there's no soccer girlfriends. It was just me. All of his friends play soccer with him. So I'm really nervous. Like I said, I suffer from anxiety. I'm literally nervous to stand at this gas station. I don't feel comfortable standing by myself. So I call him and I tell him, like, hey, I think I'm gonna walk home. Like, because like I said, his house was directly across from the stadium, and this gas station was very close to his apartment. I said, I think I'm just going to walk home, because I was like, this just makes me feel like really uncomfortable being here by myself. I'm nervous, I'm scared. You told me somebody got robbed over here not too long ago. So he gets all irate, all mad. He's like, I don't understand why you can't just stand there. Why do you need me there? And I turn up, because I'm confrontational for real, not for fake. So I'm looking at my phone and I'm like, who is he talking to? He can't be talking to me. So we start going back and forth. His friends pull up to the gas station, and we're literally yelling at each other, going at it at the gas station. And at this point, I'm embarrassed, because this is my first impression of, you know, your teammates and things like that. And you're cussing me out. You're cussing me out essentially for not wanting to stand by myself. All the red flags are there, ignoring them. So I decide that I'm going to walk home. He gets in the car, and I'm like, I'm just gonna walk home or whatever. And I can't remember how we ended up getting separated. I actually don't remember that part of the story, but I ended up walking home. So he calls me and he's like, where are you, or whatever. And I'm not telling him where I am, because I literally just told you, like, I'm walking home. So I'm sitting outside. I'm in front of like the apartment building, and then my mom calls, because I guess he had called my mom, like, hey, I don't know where she is, because like I said, I told him I was going home, but I don't know if he didn't hear that, whatever the case may be. So I'm sitting in front of the apartment building. My mom calls and she goes, you need to find Jimmy. She's basically saying, like, you need to find Jimmy, because you don't know where you're at, you're not from here, and it's not safe. So Jimmy and Liam come, and me and him are just going at it. I mean, when I tell you guys we are going at it, like we are going at it, and we had really been going at it the whole time. Like even prior to me going to his game, we had been going at it. His neighbors were hearing us. It was bad. So we're sitting there and we're going back and forth, and the next day passed and I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I'm basically telling him like, you know, we argue a lot. You didn't even want me to come down here if I was going to be on my menstrual, which is out of my control. And what I ended up doing to pause my menstrual, which I didn't even mention, was I had a friend at the time that told me like, oh, if you take multiple birth control pills, and never do this, if you take multiple birth control pills, you will be able to skip your period. I do it all the time. So I had actually skipped the period row, and just jumped straight into the regular row that you take for birth control. For those of you who take the pills, you know what I'm saying. So I was so stressed out after that argument that I literally started to start my cycle because I was so stressed. It didn't skip. It skipped for the majority of the time that I was there, but it didn't end up skipping. So to make matters worse, I get a call from my university, and I had applied to be a resident advisor because, like I told you guys, you know, you can't be an underclassman and, you can't be an upperclassman and live in the dorms. You have to have an apartment. Well, I didn't want an apartment. I wasn't ready to pay rent. That responsibility was too much for me. I wanted to be a resident advisor. And I kind of was confident I was going to get that role because I knew if I didn't get that role, I was going to be homeless. So in the midst of me arguing and feeling uncomfortable, I didn't have enough money to change my flight. I get a call from the university and they basically tell me like, hey, you haven't been selected. So I lose it because not only do I want to go home and I don't have the money to change my ticket, me and my boyfriend are arguing. Now you're telling me I'm going to be homeless when I go back to school. And at this point, I'm in Texas and it's July. So we start classes in August. So I'm like I'm sitting there and I'm like I had to physically pick my mouth up off the floor. So I'm crying. I'm upset about that. Jimmy's trying to talk to me. He's like, what's wrong? What's going on? And I'm like, I don't want to talk to you right now. So he gets a call from his agent. His agent says to him that he has an opportunity to play in England where he would make a lot more money because, as you guys know, in other countries, soccer is a lot more prevalent than what it is in the United States. So he comes to me and he goes, I want you to move with me to England. Now, mind you, I'm a sophomore. I just got told I don't have any housing. And now my boyfriend, who I am beefing with but I still love, is telling me move with me. But one thing about me, you guys, is I always knew I wanted to be an attorney. I always wanted to have my own things, my own job, my own car, my own apartment. I never wanted to be dependent on him for anything because situations like that previous night had made me like uncomfortable. So I had told him like, I don't feel comfortable moving with you. I don't want to move with you. I actually just want to finish school. And he said, well, I would pay for your school. Obviously, I'd be making so much money. You know, you would be taken care of if you moved to England. And I basically told him, no, I am not going to move with you. This definitely set him off. This set him off because he's looking at the situation like so many women would not turn down this opportunity. You're already dating a professional athlete. You're in school. Why not? You know, and I'm basically telling him like, because I don't want to. And I wasn't doing that because I had an attitude. I was simply saying it because I feel like putting that much power into a man at that young, I knew that wasn't smart. You know what I mean? Like I knew that if things were to go left, my support system was going to be so far. And I don't know if you guys have heard this saying, but like people say like the relationships at 19, like they're really traumatic, you know, and they usually don't work. I mean, that was the case for me, but I've always been very confident in myself, and I've always knew what I wanted out of life, and I knew I wanted my own things. And it's not that I couldn't have my own things being in a relationship with him, but I always knew what dating an athlete was going to entail just off of my experience when he was in college. And I was just thinking about the fans, the women, the money, the traveling. Like my life would no longer be about me is how I looked at it. My life would be about him. And I just didn't want that. So obviously, like I said, this pissed him off, and we got into a really bad argument. And I told him, I said, well, I'm gonna leave, you know, like, I'm gonna leave tomorrow, you know, when you get back, I'm just gonna take an Uber there and go by myself. He was like, I don't have time to go back and forth with you because I have my assignments to do. So even though he was drafted, they allowed him to do his classes online because he hadn't graduated yet. So he's doing his assignments that night. We slept in the bed together, but we didn't really talk. So the next day he came in from practice. He brought me some food. He asked me again, like, hey, are you wanting to go with me to England? And I was like, no, Jimmy, I don't want to go. We argued some more. I was so upset. And I told him, I was like, hey, I actually need you to run to the, oh my gosh. Oh, okay. Sorry, it paused. He was just like, hey, I was telling him, like, hey, I need you to run to the store to pick up like some sanitary like stuff for me, because like I told you guys, it's that time of the month, I needed pads and stuff. And he was like, no. Mind you, the gas station was in walking distance. Like, he could have went and got me the pads or whatever I needed. So once he said that, I was just kind of like, okay, you're being extra. Like, you won't even get me pads and you know I'm bleeding. Okay. So I took my stuff, and mind you guys, he watched me do this. Once he said he wasn't gonna go get the pads for me and that I should go to walk to the gas station by myself, when this whole argument started about me being uncomfortable to begin with, I just took my stuff and I went to the store, bought my things, and I called my parents and I was like, I left. And I was like, I'm just gonna sit at the airport. My flight wasn't for another like 6 hours. I was like, I'm going to take my things and I'm going to get an Uber and I'm just gonna sit in the airport. So he saw me grabbing my bags, he saw me leaving, but not once did he ever ask me, where are you going? Because like I said, my flight wasn't for hours. So I go to the store, I get my things, and I actually called one of my friends, we'll call him Jose. And I basically was telling him what happened, and I was crying, and he was like, I told you shouldn't have went down there. Like, you know how he is when he gets upset and stuff. And I was like, I know. So I get in my Uber, I call an Uber, and the Uber driver was so nice. I'm in the car crying because I'm like, I don't think we're gonna be together. I'm leaving here by myself. And my Uber driver was telling me, like, you're a nice young lady, don't let a guy like that make you cry, he's not worth your time, I have daughters, I know how this goes. Just an amazing Uber driver, right? So I get to the airport and I'm literally crying in the airport. I'm sad, I'm trying to, or he's calling me, and at this point I'm not answering because I'm like, you saw me leave, you didn't ask me where I was at, you didn't want to buy me pads, like, you yelled at me in front of everybody, like, we've been arguing the whole time, like, this has not been a good time for me. You told me not to come if I was on my period, like, all this stuff. So my mom calls me because at this point my parents know I'm at the airport, they know I'm gonna sit there for some hours, they have my location. My mom calls me, and I guess he had actually called her on accident trying to get a hold of me and cussed her out thinking it was me. And my mom was like, do not answer his calls, do not talk to him, just get on that plane and your father will be there to pick you up. So yeah, I literally got on the plane. I cried the whole way. I'll never forget, I watched Inside Out, the first one, and I was literally just crying the whole time. Like, I'm thinking to myself, like, he saw me grab my bags, he didn't ask me not one time if I was okay. And mind you, by the time I had gotten the pads and got to the Uber, I had already been gone like an hour. So the way I was internalizing it was, okay, well, if you see that I've been gone for an hour and you're just now calling me, like, where did you think I was? You know what I mean? Like, where did you, like, come on. So yeah, I got on the plane, I went home, and we actually did end up dating. And a guy that I speak about in my previous story time is actually the guy I ended up meeting immediately after, which is funny. The guy who pulled my wig off at the haunted house. So yeah, he had left me, you know, in Texas by myself. I had left, he didn't even ask me where I was going. I sat outside and I cried after I got those pads. Like, literally, once I left and I grabbed my bags and I went and grabbed those pads, I just sat and I cried until I was like, pull it together, like, you gotta get an Uber. So yeah, you know, Jimmy's doing well. We actually reconnected maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. He actually asked to come down and stay in my apartment, and guess what I told him? I told him, no, you gotta stand on what you did to me. I don't care how long ago it was. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story time. It was a lot for me to say, a lot for me to tell because it was so long ago. But yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed this story time. Please make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. More story times, more vlogs on the way. Thank you guys so much and have a great night. Bye guys.